commissioners, you know that it's been a priority of the city for a number of years to redevelop the area between John Young Parkway and Tampa Avenue on Orange Center Boulevard. If you had traveled on that piece of road 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I suppose, if you looked on the north side, you would have seen boarded up, dilapidated, abandoned apartments. If you looked on the south side, you'd have seen boarded up, dilapidated apartments. I think there might have been a few residents still on the south side, but for the most part, it made the entire area of West Lakes look blighted because of what was going on directly on Orange Center Boulevard. So we have made it a priority to facilitate the redevelopment of those areas, and it hasn't been easy. Some of the properties were in foreclosure, some were in bankruptcy. We had to go to the federal government, we had to go to bankruptcy court, but we were, as a city, were able to acquire the land both on the north side and now the south side and put it out for RFP for quality development to restore that corridor, but also to meet our needs in terms of affordable housing, quality housing, senior housing, and lift up that entire area. So we've got a good start on the north side. We have acquired the property on the south side and have gone through a process to select a developer, and that's what we're here for. And I'm going to call on Brooke to, I should also mention, just as an aside, since 2015, we've invested over $30 million in over 1,000 affordable units. We have more than a dozen housing projects going up in the city of Orlando that are in some part sponsored by the city. So we're doing as much on affordable housing. We have a lot to catch up on, but as any government in Florida right now. So Brooke, can you lead us through this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you today on the Orange Center Boulevard site. I promise I'm going to get this right today because Ed taught me how. Okay. And so, as the mayor mentioned, today we're going to go through overview of our strategic acquisitions, which he just covered, the current opportunity, the proposal that staff is recommending that we move forward with, the draft of the purchase and sale agreement, as well as the recommendation. And so, as was mentioned, in 2015, the city acquired 7 vacant foreclosed properties from Fannie Mae, the Greater Washington Shores area, and Mercy Drive to work on redevelopment opportunities and to ensure quality, affordable housing to be built. Since that time, I'm proud to say that we've completed a number of the projects, Pendana at West Lakes, New Horizons, which was done by Hope Church of Orlando. We've also got 2 projects, developments underway, the Lakeside Village in Bordeaux site, which Commissioner Hill commented on, which is opening later this year, called the Village on Mercy. In addition, Pendana Phase 2, which is a senior affordable housing project, is underway with completion planned for 2019 as well. And then also, most recently, you approved a purchase and sale agreement for Pepper Tree Shores and Pepper Tree Circle, the last 2 sites that we had along Mercy Drive. And that anticipated closing date is in December of 2019. And I'm proud to report that we were recently notified that Blue Sky Communities did receive 4% state apartment incentive loan funding for that project, and it does appear that that is moving forward. Other notable projects, Paramore Oaks being developed by Invictus, the Amelia Court project in Creative Village being developed by Atlantic Housing, and then the Palm Grove apartment rehab completion in 2019. In the current opportunity that we're here to discuss today, there was one additional site that was not included in the original acquisition of the Fannie Mae properties, and this was the South Side property along Orange Center Boulevard. The city worked for several years, and in 2017, we were finally able to acquire that site, a 4.68 acre site, and our purchase price was $700,000 for that site. In 2018, we began the demolition of the buildings. We used federal funds, CDBG funds, as well as code enforcement lien funds to cover the cost of that demolition, which exceeded $330,000. Demolition started in the fall of 2018, as well as abatement, and was completed in January of 2019. And this is the site that we're talking about today, that you can see on the south side of Orange Center Boulevard, up to Tampa Avenue. And that's a picture of the buildings that formerly sat on that site, which we considered to be, I think all did, very much blight that needed to be removed. In 2018, 2 community meetings were held with the surrounding neighborhoods to discuss the planned demolition as well as the process moving forward. These 2 meetings were held on June 18th as well as August 23rd. We had about 50 residents in attendance in total at both of those meetings, and that does not include city staff. The input obtained from these community meetings that was incorporated into the solicitation document for the site was a preference for ownership opportunity through single-family homes and/or townhomes, incorporating neighborhood retail on the site, if possible, a design that complemented the surrounding neighborhood. These sites were unique in that it abuts a very stable single-family neighborhood, and as well as community participation in the project. In November in 2018, based on the input that was received, the city released an opportunity to redevelop solicitation that established goals for the project and for submissions. And these goals that were included included the items that had been identified by the stakeholders that attended the meeting. In addition, the city added the goal of recouping our investment in the acquisition and demolition of that site. We received 6 responses, and these are the 6 in no order other than alphabetical. So American Residential Communities, Sealy Consulting and Vodum Construction, Hannibal Square Community Land Trust and CTG, Invictus Development, Lift Orlando, RUDG, LLC, and the ONIC group. The 6 proposals were reviewed by an advisory committee of city staff in posted meetings. We did have some members of the public that attended these several meetings. All proposers gave presentations throughout an entire day. And then all of the proposers were also asked to complete a standard matrix in order to allow us to compare all of the submissions. And so this matrix was completed for whether they were seeking 4% tax credits, 9% tax credits, or had identified another funding model. This is a comparison of the 6 that were received. The number of units is the line across the top. Ownership units, we've broken that out separately because that was an item that was important to the community. The number of rental units, the retail square footage, the purchase price that was being offered, whether they were seeking a 4% tax credit option, a 9% tax credit option, a non-tax credit option, what city contribution would be necessary, meaning that if they purchased the property from us, so for instance, the first column, American Residential Communities, they were proposing to purchase the property for $1.3 million, but under their proposal for seeking funding to move their project forward, they would have needed $955,000 from the city to close a financing gap in order to apply for tax credits. And then also minority business and women business participation in the project. So I'll just leave that up for a second so you can look at the differences there. After extensive review of the proposals, the advisory committee determined that the Hannibal Square Community Land Trust proposal aligned most closely with the goals that had been identified and should be moved forward for consideration. It really based on these 6 or 7 areas. They provided for home ownership opportunity with 2-story single-family townhomes with rear garages, a landscape buffer, and privacy walls that would complement and enhance the surrounding neighborhood. They incorporated plans for a 3-story mixed-use development at the corner of Orange and Tampa that would provide neighborhood retail amenities on the first floor, as well as mixed income rental on the top 2 floors. They are agreeing offer to pay $1.035 million to the city, enabling the city to recoup its investment in the acquisition of the site. And probably most important, or definitely of high importance to the selection committee, their proposal does not require any further investment by the city in order to move development forward on their site. They provided evidence of approved financing in place that does not rely on grants or tax credits. They have a great deal of experience with land trusts, which is incorporated into their proposal. And they also achieve the city's diversity goals for city certified and MWBE businesses. And I'd like to recognize Camille Reynolds with the Hannibal Square Land Trust is with us today, as well as Derek Wallace with CTG Constructors. And so now I'm going to move into the proposal. And these are slides that have been pulled from the proposal that Hannibal Square Land Trust presented to the advisory board. This is the project site. Schematic plan that shows 30 townhomes with space in between each. So it's not just a wall of townhomes, but provides for green space in between the buildings, as well as retail and residential on the corner. They, again, are providing for 30 townhomes, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 2-car garage. Of the 30 townhomes, 40% would be open to any income bracket. 9 would be targeted to 80 to 120% AMI, and 9 units would be above 80% to 50% AMI. All of the townhomes would have the same amenities, and there would be a ground lease fee and other property maintenance fee that would be included in the monthly dues. I'm going to go through this part quickly, and again, when we get to questions, Camille is here so she can speak more specifically to these items. And then this is the corner parcel that has the mixed income rentals as well as the neighborhood business retail. Again, proposing 20,000 square feet with 28 mixed income rental units on top. And these are just some concepts and ideas of different types of uses: coffee shop, deli, small restaurant, outdoor seating and dining. Mixed-use building. 28 apartments, 14 on each floor. You can see the unit breakdown on those. And then I think one of the items that a number of people often have questions about is a community land trust and how those work. This proposal does include the establishment of a community land trust, and Hannibal Square has a community land trust, part of which is already operating in Winter Park and has been very successful. And so the community land trust provides a way to prevent gentrification and to ensure affordability moving forward. And so while community land trusts have been around for more than 40 years, most of them have been established since the 1990s. And essentially what it does is it provides for a 99-year lease on the land, And so what somebody owns is their building. And this enables them to purchase that and own a home at a price that is affordable. And oftentimes it allows for a home buyer, somebody to be a home buyer at a rate that might be less expensive than even what they could find a market rate apartment at. So there's a ground lease that prohibits market rate resale except for units that are purchased at market rate. So the market rate land trust units that are included within their proposal, if you own a market rate unit, you have the ability to sell that unit without any restrictions. For the other units, there is a formula that determines what portion of the equity is yours. And again, the land trust concept enables people to, again, own a home, but to also free up some of their disposable income to use towards other needs that they may have. An important part of this is that there is a CLT board, a Community Land Trust Board. The Community Land Trust is a nonprofit, and on the CLT board are homeowners, as well as stakeholders in the area that have a say in what happens within that site and within that land trust. And so these are just some items, pictures of previous projects that they've worked on, and other items. So they've done some work in Apopka, Hannibal Square, some rapid rehousing, and then also a joint venture that they're doing with the West Lakes Partnership. And this is a sample formula that you can see that kind of breaks down how the calculation would work as it relates to a sale and equity. You do have the ability to pass your home on to another family member. And again, you can also sell it if you're in an income restricted unit. There is a formula that determines exactly what portion of that you receive. Purchase and sale agreement. We have before you today a purchase and sale agreement that would provide for a 180-day due diligence period with Hannibal Square Community Land Trust. And during this time, Hannibal Square will be working with the city as well as with the stakeholders and surrounding residents on design and planning for the development. Closing per this contract is required within 90 days of the end of the due diligence period. During or after the due diligence period and through the closing date, Hannibal Square Community Land Trust would be responsible for landscape maintenance and maintaining any fences for the site, and then they would begin construction within 90 days of closing. The buyer has agreed to meet or exceed the city's diversity goals. And as I mentioned, Derek Wallace and CTG Development Company has been selected as the prime contractor for this site. And they are providing for, they're exceeding 65% in MWBE participation. The buyer will also create a community action plan, which was required by the solicitation to provide a roadmap to companies that wish to participate in the project. In addition, employment opportunities for the local workforce, both skilled and unskilled labor. And the recommendation that is before you today from the Chief Financial Officer that the City Advisory Committee made a recommendation to is to enter into a purchase and sale agreement for this site, for the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement, indeed an authorization for the city's real estate manager to execute all closing documents necessary for the buyer to finalize their financing.